Attack the city as the bottom, attack the heart as the top. There are no soldiers who cannot fight, only generals who cannot lead troops. Keywords of the novel. I will not let the king succeed without a pop-up window. I will not let the king succeed in downloading the complete TXT collection, and I will not let the king succeed in reading the latest chapters. Chapter 1. The Secret Operation of Kageko. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The secret operation of Kageko. On a late night in early autumn, a jeep rushed over and stopped in front of an old-fashioned apartment building. An elderly woman slowly glanced around, then quickly jumped out of the car and walked into the apartment. She took off her simulated mask and revealed a young and stunning face. She then easily pressed her fingerprint password and facial recognition image and took the elevator to the 7th floor. In a spacious room on the 7th floor, an elegant middle-aged man is sitting on the sofa and talking to the two men next to him. Seeing someone bowing their head in, a man in a suit next to them smiled and said, "Speak of the devil." The woman lifted her head and looked at the man in front of her. Her originally sharp gaze became excited and she said, "Li Bu, is that you?" The man in the suit nodded with a smile and said, "The headquarters has sent you to assist in the destruction of 125. In name, I am the team leader, but in reality, General Chui is fully responsible. Before you arrived, General Chui had already discussed the operation of 125 with us. Bai, ranked first in the strength group of the chemical industry ranking, is often assigned by the headquarters to carry out important tasks, and has a strong martial arts foundation." A deep voice suddenly sounded across from him. Bai looked at the elegant man across from him in surprise. The man in a suit smiled and said, "This is General Chui Ziyuan, the person specially invited by the headquarters to be responsible for the destruction of Operation 125. Director Chui. It is said to be a famous veteran chemical worker from S country, with 3 heads and 6 arms. He was the mastermind behind the desert operation and the rescue of Solari. This is related to the disappearance of S country's important figure, former Nathan's uranium chief Muritalin Akimidi Romer. In 1928, Taran Akimidi Romer and his driver's car mysteriously disappeared under the blockade of tens of thousands of bodyguards and aerial planes on the ground. He was the mastermind behind the disappearance incident. The man known as Li continued, "This is Deputy Chief Ma of the Chemical Engineering Department. The headquarters has sent him to assist your operation." Baiyu nodded calmly and bowed to Chui Yongji and Deputy Director Ma, saying, "Hello, General Director Chui and Deputy Director Ma." Chui Yongji glanced lightly at the calm young woman in front of him and nodded. Deputy Chief Ma warmly extended his hand and said, long heard, Baiyu, I am like thunder piercing through my ears." The person known as the Li Department waved his hand and said, "Everyone sit down, Deputy Chief Ma. You are also a veteran chemical engineer. Can you first report the information you have mastered to General Manager Chui?" "Yes." Deputy Chief Ma nodded and said, "We have detected that the other party has arrived at the designated location, the S National Stadium, as planned. Professor Qian Yun and the scientist Xiao Ji, who studies chemical forces, will meet there." Chui Ziyuan nodded and said, "Xiao Ji, a famous physical chemist from Country B, has been recognized as one of the top 10 influential world experts for developing artificial skin. He spent 2 years at a research institute in Country S." The man known as Li continued, "Our company is not yet quite proficient in these technologies, especially in cutting-edge technology. This physicist from Country B is one of the top talents in the world. This time, we want to seize the opportunity of this action and win him over." Chui Ziyuan said, when he met Qian Yun, he was afraid that the praying mantis would catch cicadas and the yellow sparrow would be behind. Baiyu said, "Professor Qian Yun, a Nobel laureate in physics, often conducts gas experiments. His research has accumulated a large amount of materials for S country's new energy field and created indispensable tools for studying quantum and particles." Deputy Chief Ma. George, a native of Country B, is the greatest experimental physicist of his time. He has been dedicated to research in fields such as chemistry, materials science, energy, nanoelectronics, and molecular electronics, and has achieved many important results. He is one of the most outstanding chemists in Country B. Chui Ziyuan chuckled, the meeting of scientific geniuses and scientific geniuses across national borders. Li Bu frowned lightly and said, their purpose is said to be an energy fossil, which is related to the strength and destiny of S country. Whoever can control it will be the lifeline of S country. By you, I command you now to bring the stone back to me and protect the personal safety of Professor Qian Yun and Professor George intact. Bai and his face changed, and he nodded in front of Li Bu, who had a heavy expression, and General Chui, who had a serious expression. Li Bu, don't worry, we will definitely complete the task. At the same time, Linger, dressed up as a gym staff member and on a mission to S country, was talking to George in the VIP room on the second floor. At this moment, Li from Country B, who was performing tasks in the gymnasium, whispered through his headphones, Linger is trying to find a way to communicate with him. Did anyone else notice? A voice came from the earphones. No, so far no suspicious people have been found. It's not good, a male staff member is going up with something to clean. Stop him, not even a fly can let him go up, the voice said. Yes, Shaoli said, cautiously holding down the gun that was ready to be pulled out from his waist and running up. Before running to the front, I saw a bright light in front of me. With a thud, a knife light pierced Shaoli's throat, and blood gushed out. I kept an eye on their Linger, but when I couldn't pull out my gun, I heard a thud, and a dagger pierced her chest. Susu heard another continuous sound, and two people rushed out like lightning from behind. Two more small knives were thrown straight away, their light flashing rapidly and piercing into the opponent's throat. The man who was cleaning had already put down his tools and his sharp eyes looked to both sides. The flying knife in his hand also quickly shot at the head of the person holding the gun on both sides. Suddenly, 5 people rushed out from the left side, and the man's small knife shot straight at his opponent. 9 people lay on the ground almost simultaneously without firing their guns. There was only one gunshot, and he rushed straight towards the back like lightning, only to hear 3 more mournful cries. In the blink of an eye, all 12 people were killed. Qian Yun and George, who were staying indoors, didn't know what had happened. Still drinking coffee and chatting inside the room. With a loud bang, the man sweeping the floor rushed in, smiled slightly, picked up Qian Yun and George, and picked up their black suitcases. At 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, several black-clothed people appeared at the entrance of the rented apartment by B Country people, charging into the apartment with silencing pistols. The hidden B Country chemical had not yet reacted to the situation and was already lying in a sleep. The people of B Country never thought that in the city where they had just landed, many people had not yet woken up from their sleep. Death struck these people with a swagger, and the more than 20 members of the action team were all spared. A secluded small building, with secret identities and sophisticated weapons, someone dared to break into a residential building and publicly carry out a shooting, leaving no one behind. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Appearance of Traitors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Appearance of Traitors. Goenmengjie knocked on the door. Come in. Lu Fei sat at the table, thoughtfully wiping his beloved .45 pistol. Looking at the seemingly small but cold and ruthless destructive weapon, Enmengjie seemed to have seen the scene of Linger's death, and her nose couldn't help but ache. There is a freshly brewed coffee next to it, steaming hot. Perhaps from the day she joined the organization, life was not up to her to make her own decisions. The ordinary life of being a husband and raising a child is destined to be missed by him. Perhaps due to standing for too long, Lu Fei checked all the bullets in the pistol again, looked up again and glanced at Enmengjie who was standing at the door but still couldn't come in. Enmengjie, who was still in a daze, couldn't help but curl her lips and say, "Do you want to be the gatekeeper or are you planning to stand guard for me?" Enmengjie blushed and walked in with standard steps. The headquarters is preparing for you to go to Country S, rescue Professor George, and successfully obtain an energy fossil in the professor's hands. Fossils. Anmengjie hesitated for a moment. I heard it's related to the Battle of Chongping, which lasted for over 2,000 years. Lu Fei carefully handed the freshly brewed cup of coffee to the girl in front of him. Oh. Anmengjie took the coffee in surprise, and a hint of surprise flashed on her calm and delicate face. Lu Fei looked at the gaze she threw at her. The two enchanting pair whirlpools were fleeting, and his heart suddenly jumped. He quickly gathered his mind and pretended to ponder, saying, in the Battle of Chongping, Bai Chiqing killed 400,000 soldiers of Zhao. Zhao's national strength was empty, and more than half of the young men died in battle, which was in danger. Qin was strong and unified the Central Plains. I heard that this stone was dug out from the pile of dead in that Battle of Chongping. A pile of dead people. How do you know? Why are you still related to the professor? Could it be that Professor George has another identity, part-time archaeology professor? Anmengjie, who was originally sad, widened her eyes when she was interrupted by this. I don't know either, it's from what others said, and the headquarters also attaches great importance to it. It may be that the things in Professor Qian Yun's hands in S country are not in line with Professor George's research topic, Lu Fei pondered. Since that's the case, what kind of hand should someone else interfere with the research? Anmengjie thought innocently, and her eyelids twitched before suddenly shivering inexplicably. Liener, are you implying that I want to avenge you? I'm not sure about the commands above, said Lu Fei, who was serious about speaking and laughing. When he met the charming Anmengjie in front of him, his words became much more difficult. Although it was a secret of Country B, the graceful woman in front of him had already broken through the defenses, giving him an indescribable feeling. Oh, Anmengjie replied cleanly, I will definitely complete the task assigned by headquarters. Anmengjie's watery and bright gaze made his heart tremble again, and suddenly there was a moment of unconsciousness. He suddenly remembered a poem by Zhou Bangyan. Beautiful land, who remembers the great events of the southern dynasty, surrounded by mountains and clear rivers around the ancient country. At this moment, his heart began to wander. Minister Lu. Anmengjie's voice rang out again, and Lu Fei quickly restrained his mind, coughed lightly, and became serious. Mengjie, I know the task is important and difficult, and I hope you can come back safely and complete it successfully. Yes, I promise to complete the task. Anmengjie looked at Lu Fei's instantly changing face, nodded, and turned to walk out. I'm leaving now. Lu Fei stared at the beautiful figure before his eyes, as if something was missing from his heart. The astringency is not the taste. A graceful lady is a good match for a gentleman. A man walked over with a smile and saw him wearing a precious suit. He applauded and said with a smile, this time, I have really broadened my horizons. It can be considered that I have met a woman who has made Minister Lu eat her belly up. Haven't you ever seen anyone who's eaten up? Are there still fewer birds, and swallows around you? Lu Fei, who was already sitting at his desk handling official documents, snorted. Wang, the talented person, is a rare guest. He came here to see a joke. Our data department has been busy with your affairs these days, but they are extremely busy. Wang Zhongqing, who had been familiar with him for a long time, did not argue and sat down on the sofa. His smile gradually faded and his face became dark. What happened? Lu Fei looked at him strangely, rarely noticing his serious demeanor. He always looked out of place and couldn't help but ask, so you've made a mistake again, your position has been demoted 3 levels in a row. Damn it, I don't care about being demoted. Wang Zhongqing's eyes turned red and he rubbed them. That's because there are too many gossip stories, making people block the entrance, Lu Fei laughed. I'm not in the mood to joke, Lu Fei. I suspect there's a traitor inside, it's the failure of Operation 125 last time. Wang Zhongqing's face turned ugly. Are you telling the truth? Lu Fei frowned lightly and said in a deep voice to Wang Zhongqing. Of course. Wang Zhongqing's face was gloomy and terrifying. After the failure of our chemical engineering operation last time, I suspected there was an internal problem. I sorted out all the personnel involved in the coordination of Operation 125 and the experts responsible for the operation during that period, and found a clue. Surprisingly, one of their activity records was related to a secret organization. The secret organization, Zhongqing. Do you suspect that these people are involved in the secret organization? Lu Fei was somewhat surprised. Wang Zhongqing looked at him very seriously and nodded. Lu Fei lit a cigarette and said, "Do you think we leaked intelligence on our end?" Wang Zhongqing nodded and said, "Although we can't be entirely certain yet, you know how much our teammates sacrificed in the last Operation 125, even the intelligence expert in the Tsuhua 125 almost died. He was an expert from the Western world who spent 2 years carefully planning to welcome him back to his home country, but now there is also a problem. The return of intelligence experts to China was carried out in a top-secret state, and this time they returned to China to work under confidentiality, without revealing their true identity." Lu Fei said, "Fortunately, this expert narrowly avoided a difficult situation." Wang Zhongqing. According to the intelligence from our special agent team, the survival of the intelligence expert was very accidental, which means that someone has accurately and inaccurately grasped his return to China and work status. So the headquarters attaches great importance to this matter. The meaning of the headquarters is to first ensure the security of intelligence experts, secondly, the leakage issue of Operation 125 must be thoroughly investigated and uncovered. Lu Fei's face darkened and he said, "Do you know who knows the true identity of the expert and the specific situation of 125's actions?" Wang Zhongqing. In addition to our senior leaders, there are also people involved in Operation 125. Lu Fei. The people of Operation 125. Aren't they all dead? Wang Zhongqing said, "No, there is no one who assists security experts in Operation 125. There is also an intelligence agency specifically responsible for it. They have also set up a small group, with members from the special agents and information departments, and the rest from the intelligence agency. The deputy director serves as the team leader, but of course, the specific work is still decided by that expert." Lu Fei. Data science, our department. Wang Zhongqing said, "Yes, you know this person. It's your former classmate Chen Feng. There was an incident of 125, and the authorities have already sent him back." Lu Fei nodded and said, "How come I don't know about this?" Wang Zhongqing said, "After completing his doctoral studies abroad, he returned for 2 years. After the failure of Operation 125, he could no longer continue that job. The headquarters then ordered him to serve as your superior." Lu Fei finally couldn't help but say, "Do you want to become a leader or do turtles take advantage?" Wang Zhongqing gave a strange smile and said, "Are you feeling uncomfortable? Just check who his father is and you'll understand." Lu Feidao said, "What's going on?" Wang Zhongqing curled his lips and smiled, "Although you are classmates, you don't know your background, do you? They are official second-generation officials." Lu Fei smiled bitterly and said, "Forget it, people are more popular than people. Let's talk about the leak. Is there a problem with the translation code?" Wang Zhongqing. "This possibility has been ruled out." Lu Feidao said, "Are you saying that the problem is still with the intelligence agency?" Wang Zhongqing said, "Yes, the clue I just mentioned is related to Bai Yu. I have developed an informant in S country, and according to his description, he occasionally heard about Chen Feng and a person named Bai Yu during a high-level conversation. Bai Yu. Ranking first on the chemical industry list." Lu Fei squinted his eyes. "Yes, it should be him, the most outstanding chemical elite, unmatched." Wang Zhongqing picked up a cigar, handed it to Lu Fei, lit one himself, and took a deep breath. "I suspect that the destruction of Operation 125 was caused by him personally, it's broken, Lu Fei said as he picked up the gun from the table and rushed out. If Mengjie encounters him, it will be troublesome. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Small Misfortune and Big Strategy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Small Misfortune and Big Strategy. The time was set at 2 a.m. on April 6, 1938, outside the suburbs of the capital city of S-Country. Two special transport vehicles were driving rapidly on the outskirts, without license plates, only special signs. Half an hour later, the big car entered an inconspicuous yellow building on the outskirts of the city. Several Special Forces soldiers dressed in plain clothes walked up to inspect the two cars. One Special Forces soldier looked at the people in the back of the car and gestured to come down to inspect. As soon as the car door opened, a young man in camouflage clothing with a beautiful appearance got off the car. The guard took the sign from his hand and checked it for a while, saying, "New here." The young man looked childish and slightly resentful. Last night, Big Brother had diarrhea, so Brother had to come early in the morning. The guard smiled and patted the thin shoulder of the other person, saying, "We can't blame the government for our unfortunate fate. Little brother, Big Brother, we also stand all day long. The higher-ups have just issued orders. Even if the leader arrives personally, we must pass through the procedures." Haha. The young man smiled bitterly and turned around to get on the car. Wait a moment. The voice of the Special Forces suddenly sounded from behind. The young man turned his head slightly nervously and said, "What's going on?" The Special Forces soldier smiled and put the security sign into the young man's hand, saying, "You pulled down something." The young man took the sign, pinched an inconspicuous little note under it, let out a sigh, slowly got into the car, quickly glanced at it, swallowed it, and slowly drove forward. Half an hour later, the young man finally arrived at the place. He got off the car and walked towards the so-called secret laboratory. The layout adopted by the most important confidential location in this legend, in addition to a special protective system, coupled with the hardness of the entire building, even if you take out a cannon, it cannot blow out a gap, and it is even impossible to break through directly. And the monitoring system can not only see the situation outside, but also hear the sound of voices outside clearly. Nangong Yu, with a new type of interference system, can precisely disrupt this situation. She looked at her watch and silently counted the time, as the time for the job change was approaching. Sure enough, with a click, the door was opened and two Special Forces soldiers walked out with guns on their backs. "What are you doing?" A Special Forces soldier picked up his peak gun and shouted fiercely. "Big Brother," and Mengjie raised her hand and pointed to her clothes, "I'm my own person, my own person." The Special Forces soldier withdrew his gun, his face softened, and before he could finish speaking, Mengjie, delicate and strong, threw a dart over and hit the soldier's throat. The other person widened their eyes and quickly picked up their gun. A dart and a small stone hit him accurately at the same time, and the soldier fell to the ground upside down. And Mengjie was taken aback for a moment, her body darting away like a cheetah, with a slender dart in her hand. "Mengjie, it's me." Lu Fei walked over from the darkness, dressed in black clothes and gestured with his hand. And Mengjie smiled and said, "Lu Bu." Lu Fei looked at the young man in men's clothing who was particularly energetic and lively before him, and was taken aback for a moment. "Are you okay?" "It's okay," and Mengjie said in a low voice. "How did you come?" "I'm afraid you're in danger," Lu Fei said as he hid the soldier's body. "What danger can I face?" And Mengjie didn't agree, "Isn't it the first time I've been on a mission?" Lu Fei clapped his hands and took out his shiny handgun, saying, "Take it." "I have it myself," and Mengjie patted the small gun on her waist. "This is something I have improved, it has absolutely strong killing power," Lu Fei said, forcefully thrusting the pistol into Mengjie's hand. "I really," Mengjie awkwardly said, pushing the pistol back. "Oh." Lu Fei only then noticed that his hand was gripping Mengjie's slender wrist, hastily releasing it, but the slippery feeling in his hand lingered. Hurriedly said, "No, how can we compete with the world's #1 Baiyu? Baiyu is the top on the special agent list, just to see it." And Mengjie showed an excited look. The ignorant are fearless. If it weren't for his appearance, how could we have been so thorough? Lu Fei suddenly felt a sense of jealousy in his heart. What? Action 125. And Meng's face changed. Operation 125 was completely destroyed, and all the deaths were related to him. Lu Fei couldn't help but feel a little angry as he saw her careless expression. What? What did you say? He did Linger's death. And Mengjie remembered Linger from Operation 125 and said sternly. All the people of 125, as well as the death of Expert 2, are related to him. Lu Fei's gaze became terrifying in the cold moonlight. He did everyone's death. And Mengjie bit her lip and quickly ran through the iron gate towards the villa. Mengjie, what do you want to do? Lu Fei quickly caught up with her and twisted her arm, his face serious. I'm going to kill him. And Mengjie didn't speak anymore and ran forward. Wait a moment, Lu Fei caught up with her. Mengjie. You must stay calm. I can't calm down. Old Innocence opened her eyes and let me run into the enemy who killed Linger, and Mengjie said, with a murderous aura in her eyes. Lu Fei rushed over and grabbed her wrist, whispering, in front of the enemy, you can't be so reckless. This is their territory. With your state, not only will you be unable to avenge Linger or complete the mission, but you will also expose our identity. Since I'm afraid of exposure, and Mengjie said, lifting her wrist and stretching out her leg, wanting to shake off Lu Fei. I don't want to implicate you. You go through your own path, and I'll go through my own wooden bridge. Ren Xing, Lu Fei flashed and let Mengjie's slender right leg move like lightning, reaching out to twist Mengjie's hands in the opposite direction. Are you lucky enough? And Mengjie twisted her body and shrank her right hand, heading towards Lu Fei, directly attacking his face. If I'm afraid of getting involved, I won't come over. Lu Fei extended his left hand and grabbed Mengjie's pink palm, saying urgently, Mengjie. And Mengjie looked at Lu Fei's caring face and finally stopped arguing. She just looked at him, her face turned pale, and a tear couldn't help but slide down her face. Lu Fei was shocked and felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Stop, raise your head. Whoever dares to move, I'll blow her head out. A man in a high-end uniform walked over from the shadows and pointed his gun at Mengjie and Lu Fei, saying coldly, I've been paying attention to you for a long time, and Mengjie slowly lifted her head. Throw the gun over, the man didn't finish speaking. The dart in Mengjie's hand has already been thrown towards the man. The gun in the man's hand was faster and shot at Mengjie's chest without hesitation. Mengjie, Lu Fei quickly pounced and the gun in his hand accurately shot at the man. The man tilted his body and fell down. Sir Lu, and Mengjie quickly stepped forward to hold on to Lu Fei, tears of regret filling her eyes. It's all me who has caused you trouble. I'm fine. Lu Fei covered the blood flowing from his left arm with his hand and smiled, don't cry. Mengjie nodded, tore out a small piece of cloth from her clothes, and quickly tied his arm tightly. This is a silencing pistol. Lu Fei saw his 54 pistol in his palm. Take it. He suddenly stuffed his 54 pistol into Nan Gongyu's hand. I don't want it, Nan Gongyu said urgently. Be prepared. Lu Fei squatted down and took off the man's clothes. Your clothes are not suitable for going in. Hurry up and change into their clothes. Go and get Professor Qian Yun's information first. So, what do you do? Your arm. Gong Yu looked at him with concern. It's not the first time I've been injured. You go first, I'll handle it and come over. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Pulling the Trigger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Pulling the Trigger. Well, you must take care of yourself. And Mingjie quickly put on her clothes, turned her head and said, running towards the front. If you encounter Baiyu, don't do anything. Leave it to me. I must personally seek revenge. Okay. Lu Fei looked at him and smiled, silly girl. In the apartment that Mingjie rushed to, in a room, a woman dressed as a man was talking to a middle-aged man about something. In the last operation of 125, some people suspected that you were from the Ministry of Commerce of Country B. Their senior management colluded with you and killed the intelligence, data, and expert number 2. The woman was somewhat stunned and said in an incredulous hoarse voice, it's okay to let their dogs bite, but this pot is not small. Yes, not only did you successfully take the blame, but you could also become the first person to take the blame in history. The man's gaze narrowed slightly and he sighed softly. What do you mean? The secret order above requires you to deliver the things to Professor Qian Yun's place. Professor Qian Yun, the woman frowned slightly, don't you think? The above command should not be our concern. The man's expression deep in his eyes was heavy. Yes, the woman replied. In the courtyard, people were coming and going, and the lights were brightly lit. And Mingjie walked inside wearing a high-end uniform. Office, Logistics Department, Administrative Department. And Mingjie observed the path and walked upstairs. What's going on? Isn't Qian Yun's laboratory located in the northwest corner of the second floor? And Mingjie walked aimlessly, secretly anxious. The note she finally received only had an address and no direction, and she was road blind and had no sense of direction. How could she complete the task? However, based on the intuition of a business spy, she felt that someone had already noticed her. The woman walked out of the nearby room dressed in a simple man's outfit and saw Deputy Chief Ma staring at a graceful figure in a daze. She couldn't help but smile and said, Deputy Chief Ma. Oh, it's you, it startled me. Deputy Chief Ma looked at him in surprise, and then turned around. The figure just now had disappeared. Deputy Chief Ma, the woman smiled, Mr. Chui asked you to go up there. And Mingjie breathed a sigh of relief, and the dart in her hand retracted. Oh, Deputy Chief Ma looked at the direction where the figure disappeared with suspicion, paused for a moment, and turned his head to walk away. And Mingjie lowered her head and quickened her pace. It seems that the person did not chase after her. And Mingjie dodged into a covered house and hid behind the door. There was a voice inside, as if on the phone. Oh, the archive room is on the left side of Professor Qian Yun's laboratory, I understand. I didn't expect such good luck, and Mingjie was delighted in her heart. She broke through her iron shoes and found nowhere to go. It took no effort to get it. She hid in a hidden place, waiting for the person to come out, and quietly followed the person 7 or 8 twists and turns to a room. The person pushed the door straight in and walked to the front of the adjacent room. The door was locked, and the light outside penetrated through the narrow crack of the door. And Mingjie observed, as if no one was there. She quickly threw the sharp edge of her dart in. This unlocking was learned from a teacher named Fu. After Mingjie entered the door, she quickly closed it before slowly turning around to observe the situation inside. The room is basically empty, with only a cabinet, a table, and a long sofa vaguely visible. However, Mingjie's face gradually turned ugly. Because the dimly lit lamp lit up, a white desk lamp illuminated the figure of a man. Under the dim light, the man in front of him could still be seen with phoenix eyebrows and starry eyes, a high nose bridge, holding something in his hand, and curiously looking at him with a pair of eyes. Are you curious? Do you want to be a thief? Mingjie said as she threw the dart directly out. The man was stunned for a moment, raised his lips, and didn't expect someone to attack him in his own territory. Judging from his appearance, he thought he had encountered a lost and silly girl. Breaking into someone else's room is still so straightforward and confident. The man's voice was lazy as he spoke, dodging the darts shot by Mingjie. Before he could finish his move, the man's swift skills left the darter in mid-air. The darter's body slowed down, and the man had already dodged, siding around in front of Enmenjia. A flying knife pointed straight at Enmenjia's chest and said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "I won't tell you," Enmenjia twisted her body and kicked at the man. "It's too barbaric." The man lightly turned and the flying knife happened to hit her chest. With a little force, it could directly pierce Enmenjia's heart. This technique is really not at the same level. However, the other party is using flying knives. Is it the legendary Baiyu, the murderer of Linger? You can't be Baiyu, can you? Enmenjia suddenly felt a chill in her spine and a chill in her heart. At this moment, she realized the purpose of the gun given to her by Lu Fei. With such a quick move, any weapon in front of him had lost its effectiveness. She regretted using Lu Fei's gun earlier. Guess it right, the man looked up and noticed that after the knife and dart, it was actually Enmenjia's melancholic eyes, which flashed with a strong killing intent in the beautiful eyes of Chiu Hua. The man was momentarily stunned. With this gaze, he accidentally dropped something from the box. Enmenjia seized this rare opportunity and quickly took out the pistol given to him by Lu Fei, pulling the trigger directly. The gunshot she had imagined did not come, only a sudden spread of light that dimmed her eyes. In the dark night, a warm light came from her chest, and the string of jade she had worn for many years slowly emerged from the inside out with colorful flowing light, shining together with the scorching radiance that had just spread. Enmenjia looked around in surprise at the magical scene, so stunned that she couldn't close her mouth. Because of anger and excitement, the heart rate slowly calmed down and breathing gradually slowed down. She felt that her body had become much lighter, as if it had merged with the light in the room, slowly drifting into the air, and her thoughts began to blur. It's like being hypnotized and having extremely weak willpower. Enmenjia was startled in her heart, she couldn't sleep like this. She hasn't completed the task yet and still needs to avenge Liena. If Lu Fei can't find her, it will be a disaster. But just as she tried to open her eyes, she suddenly saw the dim light around her, flashing with a mist-like halo. She blinked, still like this. Stretching out his hands and vigorously rubbing his eyes, then opening them again, still like this. After being surprised, my already extremely tired head couldn't bear it anymore and finally fell asleep. At the moment she fell asleep, she vaguely saw the man's face, but it seemed like a woman, so familiar that she seemed to have seen it somewhere before until the moment she lost consciousness, the light disappeared instantly and the room returned to its original state. The two people in the room have long disappeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Unable to leave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Unable to leave. After a long time, as if on a boat, Enmenjia woke up and said, "Baiyu, I want to kill you." "Save it, right?" "I can't go out now either," said a hoarse voice. "What should we do?" Enmenjia anxiously said, as if the two were trapped in a dark place surrounded by water. Enmenjia was surprised to find that she had learned how to swim. "Let's do it cool." Baiyu didn't have a good temper. It turned out that the wife of the current prime minister was pregnant and about to give birth. Enmenjia did not expect that she had traveled and even crossed into someone else's belly with her enemies. As the maid beside the lady hurried, the midwife shouted loudly. The lady screamed at the top of her lungs, her wet long hair sticking to her forehead, and the sheets tightly held by her hands were already soaked in sweat. Her eyebrows were twisted, and her face was incredibly pale, making her pitiful. "Give it a go, give it a go," the midwife shouted loudly, asking someone to help her wipe her body with hot water, while pressing her stomach down with her own hands and rushing down. The lady's nostrils opened and closed, panting rapidly, and suddenly let out a scream. "It's almost there. It's about to come out, let's put in more effort." With a "wow" sound, Baiyu kicked her calf hard and crawled out. "It's a hassle, you'll cry when you're born." The midwife happily picked up the child and said, "Congratulations, madam." "Congratulations, madam. She's a daughter." Oh. Ouch. Before the midwife could finish speaking, the lady screamed in pain. There's another one, give it a go. With a wow sound, Enmungjie emerged unhappily. Although she couldn't beat her, she was one step too late. Congratulations, congratulations. Before the midwife could finish speaking, she saw more than a dozen black-clothed people full of a sharp feeling, wielding sharp weapons and chopping towards them. I said I didn't have good luck and was chased right after birth. Enmungjie was so scared that she closed her eyes. A young girl rushed over, with a standard melon seed face and watery eyes that seemed to speak. A light sweep and a thick wipe were always appropriate. Pear blossoms dripped with rain, like blooming flowers rolling a few drops of dew. Her hair was messy, but she was pure and charming. She picked up Enmungjie and stepped back. Someone had already rushed towards her and rushed towards the man in black. The girl didn't turn her head and ran desperately towards the distance, stumbling and stumbling. A woman's crying could be heard in the distance, and a voice shouted loudly, "The Prime Minister of Qin, who is arrogant, betrays the imperial mandate, conspires to betray the country, and orders him to commit suicide. The rest of the clan will be executed. You bad guys, the master has made great contributions to Qin. How could you treat him like this?" "I'll fight for you," said a voice full of sadness and vicissitudes. Many people burst into tears. This is the emperor's imperial decree, who dares to disobey it? Stop talking, kill. A few screams came from afar, as if something tragic had happened before your eyes. Another scream made the girl's heart tremble, and the child she was holding almost fell off. Someone shouted from afar, "Listen to me, my family. There are those who dare to resist arrest, and there is no mercy for killing them. This old man and these few rascals are role models. Dad! Where are you running?" Suddenly, a voice came from ahead. A person came so fast, and a sword stabbed at the girl's chest. The girl screamed, her body stumbled, and she fell to the ground. However, the sword pierced through the air, piercing from the side. Enmungjie widened her eyes. A person appeared in front, glanced at the girl, and then came out from behind, drifting past like a falcon. With a loud bang, the head of the person who had just drawn the sword flew high and fell to the ground. The girl was so scared that she collapsed on the ground. The man in front of her tenderly helped her up, her eyes flickering, and she said, "Is everything okay? I hate bullying weak people the most." The girl's face turned pale and she looked at the man in front of her incredulously. Behind the man stood many soldiers with swords and knives, exuding a terrifying aura. "Don't worry, I'm a good person," he said with a clear and gentle expression, a tall nose bridge, a blue brocade robe, a folding fan in his hand, and a golden belt tied around his waist, adorned with a few rare jade pieces. He spoke politely and exuded a mature and charming temperament. Take good care of this girl," the man said. The subordinate standing behind walked over, and the girl's small red lips couldn't say anything, showing some sadness. The subordinate looked and led her towards the back. The man chuckled and said, "These ministers from the court always don't understand that the real strong don't need to use any killing tools." In 338 BC, Duke Xiaogong of Qin passed away and Crown Prince Si ascended to the throne, becoming King Hui of Qin. Gongzi Qian and others reported Shang Yang's desire to rebel, and King Hui of Qin ordered the arrest of Shang Yang. Shang Yang fled to the border and wanted to stay in a guest house. The owner of the guest house did not know that he was Lord Shang, but when he saw that he did not bring a certificate, he sued Lord Shang for his actions. Guests who stayed without a certificate would be punished. Shang Yang wanted to go to the state of Wei, but Wei refused his entry because he had once captured Prince Song alive. After returning to Qin, Shang Yang was forced to sneak back to his fiefdom and launch an attack on Jing County, now Huaxian County, Shaanxi Province. Qin Huiwen sent troops to attack, but Shang Yang was defeated and killed in battle. His body was taken back to Xianyang and presented to the public after a car split. Qin Huiwen also ordered the execution of the entire family of Xiangyang. Although Xiangyang was killed, the new law was not abolished. In October of the 48th year of the reign of King Zhao of Qin, His Majesty the Emperor personally led a large army to conquer the state of Zhao. The war was not yet over, and General Wang Jian was accompanying him. The capital was presided over by the Empress Dowager and Fan Zhu. On this day, a fire broke out in a suburban area of Baifu Bieyuan outside Xianyang City. A group of savage robbers rushed into the courtyard and killed anyone they saw, committing a shocking crime. A maid from the White Mansion escaped from the encirclement with her young master at night and was nowhere to be found. In the guard of the soldiers, the man with a clear and handsome face nodded as he looked at the White House in front of him. The soldiers around them separated into a pair, like sickles harvested, mercilessly charging into the heavily injured White House, killing anyone they saw. Even the soldiers who had previously committed the murder were not spared, and all the murderers who had been shot and killed fell in a pool of blood, all of whom mourned their lives. Each soldier held a hard crossbow that was only allowed to be equipped in the army, and the light crossbow shot rapidly towards the murderers who had not yet died. These people are cocooning themselves. Suddenly, a skilled assassin in the team rushed out and flew out. Dozens of soldiers, who were full of killing intent, shot their hard crossbows towards him, causing the assassin to leap and disappear. To live is to see people, to die is to see corpses, don't let one go, the man said coldly, without any emotion. Yes, a black figure flew out with a sharp sound, and its head flew high, blood pouring down like rain. Seeking death, the man said with a mournful expression. This chapter is purely fictional. If there are any similarities, it is purely coincidental. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Can you grow dim sum? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Can you grow dim sum? Traveling through time, she wouldn't burp so quickly, but her fate was either unfortunate or lucky, and she was saved by a young man who was very beautiful. Little brother, how old are you this year? After being a killer these years, she forgot that she was a woman and looked at the man with silver eyes. It must be an embroidered pillow. If it weren't for her young age, their assassins wouldn't necessarily be opponents of her first agent. Hey, as he looked at her almond eyes wide open, he must be hungry. Drink some water, okay. This was already n times the man handed water to Bai Yu's mouth. I don't want to drink water, I want to talk about life with you. Until now, Bai Yu found out that he had been a killer for years and had the potential to become handsome. His emotions were like cheating, soaring in a straight line. Wow. Bai Yu sucked on her big thumb and cried in protest, not wanting to eat her hands, but she had no other means besides this. The man in front was worried. He looked at her pale and suddenly thought of an idea. Hey, find some wild vegetables to make porridge. Why is communication so difficult? I really didn't treat the baby like an outsider. Bai Yu stared at her blankly, his mouth twitching. However, he quickly gave up other ideas and ate it with a strong desire for survival. It's just a mess, right? It's really disgusting. His grandmother's probably the worst food he has ever eaten in his life. Outside the city of Xianyang, it is peaceful, with occasional cries of babies. Almost every word in the history of the great Qin dynasty was forged with blood and tears. Their strict regulations have deepened their relationship with the land, which to some extent makes them less tolerant and broad-minded in terms of race compared to the state of Zhao and the state of Chu. For hundreds of years, the Qin people continued to migrate westward, until the Xiangyang reform of the Qin state, which adopted the policy of attracting the people, ultimately led the Qin state to emerge from the bloody struggle of the spring and autumn period and the warring states period. Today, it has faintly surpassed the long-standing history of Zhao, Chu, Yan, Han, and Wei, becoming the first military power among the 7 states. The birthplace of Daqin is located in most parts of Shaanxi, southeastern Gansu, northern Sichuan, and western Hunan. For thousands of years, the Qin people have struggled to survive on the harsh land of Zikunkyu. After a century of dismal management, the Qin people have gradually adapted to the harsh environment of the western frontier by exposing themselves to frost, dew, and thorns. Since the ancestor Zhao, the Qin people mainly lived on the open plains and gentle plateaus on both sides of the upper reaches of the western Han River, while the Rong people mostly lived in the lower reaches of the western Han River, living a nomadic lifestyle of living in the Luo River. The harsh and cold living environment in Qin restricted the development of the Qin people, and there were also frequent border raids by the Rong people. In a remote small village, there lived a family with 2 masters and disciples. The master went hunting in the mountains every day, while the disciple was taken care of at home. At this time, Bai Yu was already 4 years old, and Yan Pe, who had entrusted someone to take care of her, was going to cook. She had to follow 5 or 6 teenagers and play a game of officers and soldiers catching thieves in the small forest behind them. Although Bai Yu is very small, she dresses quite clean and beautiful, but her big eyes appear incredibly deep. She let out a sigh, crossed her waist, and said to them in an aged manner, "The duty of a soldier is to obey. Guzi, why did you rush forward just now? You didn't listen to Xiao Ling's words." "That's right, if you don't listen next time, you'll beat him to death," said Xiao Ling, who was braiding her horns. "I'll be obedient next time, don't hit me," said Guzi with a yellow snot. "Shoo, you can't say this nonsense," Bai Yu glanced at himself with short arms and legs. If anyone else knew that he had beaten and cried several teenagers when he was only 4 years old, he wouldn't be mistaken for a demon. Niuer said, "Don't tell anyone about this." Daniel said when she was 10 years old and still didn't know what to say. How many people his mother had seen because of this talk. Experienced people told her to smooth the tendons of her tongue, but she hasn't found the one who did. "Got it," several people nodded in unison. "Niuer, I'm back," Yan Pe shouted, and Bai Yu agreed as he slowly rushed home. "Sure." Bai Yu smiled with a cunning and calculating smile as he saw the boy who had saved him also come back. The handsome face of the young man curved slightly, and his handsome eyes were filled with a gentle light. "Niuer, are you hungry? Look at how many buns I bought for you from the market." The young man happily touched Bai Yu's head. Bai Yu exclaimed, "What's so delicious about baozi? Sister has never eaten anything before. I really don't know how it turned out like this. What happened?" "I can't even speak," the man said regretfully. "If it weren't for wandering here that day and seeing a man covered in blood with a baby being chased, it would probably have cost the girl her life. The man died on the spot, and Niuer may have been frightened when she was a child. She still doesn't like to talk and can only spit out 1 or 2 words. Dad, I want to go out." Bai Yu didn't want to pretend anymore. As soon as he crossed over, he was abused, and this revenge has to be avenged. "Niuer, as soon as I got home, I wanted to go out and play. Where should I go?" This was the first time Ouyang had heard Bai Yu say such a long word and excitedly picked her up. "Who's playing?" Bai Yu, who was picked up, happened to be able to look at him. Her shallow eyes narrowed slightly, and her stunning handsome lips curled up, like a beautiful young man walking out of a manga. This is the first young man who made Bai and her heart skip a beat, unable to suppress it, his mind heavy, and his face turning red. Ouyang looked down at Bai Yu's expression and said, "My eyes are blurred and my face is red. Are you sick?" You're sick, my sister is a flower addict." Bai Yu looked impatient and said, "The world is so big, I want to go see it." The young man was stunned for a moment before curling his lips and saying, "Okay, I was just about to go home. When I sell these wolf roe deer that were brought in, we'll go back." "So you have a family, don't you?" "You're lying to me." Bai Yu was also stunned. "This kid is probably a scumbag. I took you to live here because I was afraid that Niuer would encounter bad people. Now that everything is okay, you're all grown up and your parents don't love you. Who else can know you?" Ouyang looked at him with a doting expression on his face and said obediently. Otherwise, he would have remembered his childhood and thought he had met a human trafficker. I was worried about that. Bai Yu looked down at him and said, Master, can you grow dim sum? What's going on? The boy asked in surprise. Can I put on makeup? Bai Yu appeared in front of the young man with a little boy on his head. Nyoer, you're so smart. The young man was stunned. Wouldn't he pick up a monster? What's intelligence like this? Seeing the young man's skeptical attitude, Bai Yu said to himself, I was born with it, but fortunately, I haven't lost the techniques of my past life. Master, don't call me Nyo in the future. My name is Bai Yu. This operation has already exceeded the range of the young man's heart. He kept his mouth open and couldn't speak for a long time. He wandered the world and had never encountered such a strange thing before. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The soldiers are coming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The soldiers are coming. In the early morning, the dawn lifted the veil of the night and emitted a brilliant morning light. Rome people are here, run quickly. A sharp sound suddenly sounded, and the black horses raised a lot of dust, stepping into the border of the Qin state. It's not good, the Rome people have come to grab things again. Where are you going? A man burst out laughing, drove his horse forward, and shot an arrow in front of him. His voice was rough and his skin was dark. The other person, at the age of 25 or 6, had a pair of eyes half squinted, sparkling with shrewd light. Surrounding him were a dozen strong men with large arms and round waists, some in their 20s and some in their 30s or 40s, all dressed in barbarian attire. Upon hearing the sound of archery, Tucker turned his head and looked at the passers-by, shouting loudly, Look who shot the most. Okay, last time you took the lead, we won't lose this time. Hahanaza grabbed the reins and let out a sigh. The Takashi steed suddenly stood up with a loud and long hiss. With a steady leap, it galloped forward and said, Okay, it's based on a person's head. All right. Hahanaza shouted and chuckled, Brothers, hurry up. Exhale. Exhale. The deafening cry rang out, and many Qin people who were working in the fields heard strange cries and hastily threw down their agricultural tools. Before they could run, they saw the sharp arrows in the soldiers' hands faster, piercing through their thin bodies and chests. Blood flowed out, and brilliant red flowers bloomed on their weak bodies. These people were stimulated by the smell of blood, becoming even more fierce and fierce. Hahanaza led the people to gallop around on horseback, wielding knives and chopping them. Before a group of people could react, they died tragically under the knife, splattering blood on the dry land. Someone suddenly reflected that they couldn't climb the mountain with horses and ran towards the direction of the forest on the mountain. At the same time, the sharp arrow that followed them suddenly ran towards them. A strong smell of blood rose up from the sky, and mournful screams and howls echoed throughout. The world was filled with intense screams, and Erguzi had just escaped Hanaji's pursuit, but unfortunately was hit by a stray arrow and nailed to the ground fiercely. Erguzi, Bai Yu, who heard the shout, ran over and looked at the scene in disbelief. She didn't expect Shirong to be so cruel. She was stunned for a moment and almost instinctively rushed towards this group of people. Several teenagers who heard the shout with her watched their family fall into a pool of blood, shouting and rushing towards them. At the moment when the sharp arrow fell, Bai Yu regretted it. A group of children who knew nothing fell into a pool of blood. Bai died. Only Bai Yu's movements were swift, reaching out to catch the arrow, flipping his back and throwing it at the person who shot them. A strong man's howl suddenly sounded, and everyone turned their heads to look at the child with fierce eyes. In shock, they forgot to shoot arrows. Hahanaza first reacted and saw the child react quickly. With a laugh, he bent his bow and drew an arrow, and shot at the child with a whoosh. Bai and his body jumped back flexibly, avoiding the fatal attack, but his strength was weak and he was still scratched by a sharp arrow on his calf, causing blood to flow down with a loud sound. Nyoer, Dinyozi let out a mournful cry before he could react and fell to the ground, with someone running over next to him. Go back quickly, don't come over, look for my master on the mountain. Before Bai Yu could finish speaking, the sharp arrows of those people had already been shot at the back of their companions. Everywhere were the villagers who had been shot dead and the bodies cut by the soldiers, gurgling with blood, and the ears were filled with mournful screams and cries. Bai Yu saw several arrows hitting the body of the big cow, and her pulse gradually disappeared. Her face turned pale and she stood up in anger. She opened her eyes wide, as if petrified, and her small clothes were covered in blood. The cold wind blew, and she felt like a swaying blade of grass. For the first time, she felt the weakness of her body. If she hadn't grown up yet, she would have killed them all. Hahanaji chuckled and continued to shoot arrows, shooting again. It was this person who had already shot her many times in such a short period of time. Her eyes were slightly cold and she ran towards Hanaji. It was a bit fun, Tucker snorted contemptuously and suddenly smiled. Taking advantage of her running towards her, a sharp arrow suddenly shot at her and fiercely nailed it to her feet. There was another scream, and another person shot through Linger's back as she was running. She was only 10 years old, and with a scream, she fell to the ground, her back stained red with blood. At this moment, Bai Yu could no longer describe her sadness. She stood in place, her expression heavy and stunned. Suddenly, she pursed her lips and quickly retreated, leaving the green mountains behind, not afraid of burning firewood. She wanted to find her master immediately. Her speed was extremely fast, and her injured left leg did not affect her physical agility. Arrows chased after her, but she managed to dodge her in the slightest distance. Hahanaji's eyes narrowed slightly before suddenly whispering, "Cunning beast," he shot an arrow at Bai Yu. A sharp arrow flashing with a bloodthirsty cold light slowly met 4-year-old Bai Yu, sitting on the back of a horse, with a sharp gaze as he slowly pulled his bow full. Faced with danger, Bai Yu had no choice but to blow his whistle. Chaotic thoughts whizzed through his mind, and so much confusion and regret collapsed in the face of the sudden massacre. She slowly lifted her head, her gaze cold, with a cold hatred and disgust, and looked coldly at the person facing her without any fear. Hahanaji was about to shoot arrows when Ouyang had already rushed over and brushed several swords to stab Hahanaji. Another move, dragon flying and phoenix dancing, swiftly stabbed Takashi, brushing his 2 swords and blocking the sharp arrows. He was able to handle it with ease, but there were too many soldiers and they all rode their horses. Even if they attacked several crucial points, there was nothing wrong. Naji was horrified and thought to himself, this person has excellent martial arts. In an instant, he had already fallen off his horse from a distance and fell into a mess. You have indiscriminately killed innocent people, and today I will take care of them. Ouyang quickly stepped forward and used a move to split in half, cutting towards Hahanaji. At this moment, he suddenly heard a long howl behind him. Ouyang felt a buzzing sound in his ears, and his mind suddenly became dizzy. He quickly reached out to cover his ears, but the howl still pierced through his ears like a thunderbolt. Who is so bold as to dare to attack my grandson? Someone from afar said. Another long howl. Fortunately this person had no intention of hurting others, but instead came towards the first howl. Despite this, the valley had already been shaken and made a faint sound, which was astonishing. Ouyang recovered from his previous nausea and sadness. Old devil, anyone who is bad is your disciple's grandson, Moore. Surprisingly, he is so protective. You should also go and save my disciple's grandson, a voice suddenly spoke softly. End of this chapter. Chapter 8 is about the little princess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 is about the little princess. Dead old man, with you around, there's nothing good. I like to take care of everything. A voice came from afar and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Moore, nothing is more precious than righteousness, so that those who work in the world cannot investigate the causes of chaos. The Lord can control it, said an elderly voice. Yes, Master, I understand, a young voice politely replied. Invest in me with a peach and repay me with a plum. Those who love will see love, and those who are wicked will see evil. Are you going too? After a while, the old voice said again. After a long time, Ouyang woke up in shock. It turned out that he was talking to him. May I ask which hero senior you are? But no one answered. Ouyang couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. How come in the blink of an eye, the people of Shirong have already run away completely, and even Nyoer is nowhere to be seen? Nyoer, Nyoer. Ouyang went crazy and searched everywhere for many days, but he didn't see Bai Yu's figure. At this moment, it is a time of great changes and changes in the world. In the backyard of the Wang mansion, there is a small tree on top of which a female doll is crawling unsteadily. A young master in the color of a brocade robe walked far away and said in a deep voice, Moor, the book says that learning the way to govern a country is like cooking small delicacies, but this small delicacy is really difficult to grasp. If a sage wants to govern the world, he must know where the chaos arises, and how can he govern it. Li Mu thought of what his master had said. With a loud bang, something fell down. Who is that? Li Mu quickly flashed, realizing it was a boot. Moor, what kind of yen fu is flying here today? You can pick up something on the road. Crown Prince Zhao laughed, wearing apricot yellow clothes that accentuated his skin color like jade. His eyes were curved, like a cunning fox. If pies fall from the sky, it's either a trap or a trap, Li Mu glanced at him. This trap, oh my, how could it be my little sister? Why did you run up there? Prince Zhao only then noticed An Mengjia on the tree and was startled. Prince, An Mengjia said in a childlike voice, I want to catch birds. Catch birds, catch what birds? Crown Prince Zhao looked at her playfully, with eyelashes as beautiful as a marin and milk-like skin, making people want to touch her. Li Mu also laughed a bit and said, this little princess is so brave. Are you so brave? An Mengjia was a little curious, and her eyes rolled around Crown Prince Zhao. She then glanced at Li Mu and suddenly stopped talking. She stepped on the ground and fell from the tree. Little sister. Prince Zhao was startled. I didn't expect the result of my journey to be like this. Surprisingly, she fell off a crooked-neck tree. Now, there's no need to worry about not being able to go back, let alone the grudges between her and Bai Yu. An Mingjia's heart sank and her eyes closed, ready to die. At this critical moment, Li Mu jumped up and came forward to catch her. The expected impact and pain did not come, and An Mengjia frowned slightly and secretly opened one eye. Scared. I was startled by a clear and handsome face as soon as I opened my eyes. What's going on? Li Mu couldn't care about the defense between men and women at this moment. He looked at him with concern and carefully held her in his arms, comforting him. It's okay. Playing eagle has been pecked by the eagle for a lifetime, and An Mengjia didn't expect her combat power to be so weak as she grew smaller. As long as it's okay, Prince Zhao finally calmed down. The series of unexpected events just now had frightened him. Let me down, An Mengjia glared and pushed Li Mu, holding him so tightly. What does this kid want to do? Okay, Li Mu let go and hurriedly released An Mengjia. Can't you tell that the little one's physique is not good? How could you treat me unfairly? An Mengjia looked at the dust and withered leaves on her body. This kid doesn't mind being dirty, does he also mind being dirty? I could only feel disgusted and flicked it with my hand. What An Mengjia said is so smooth. She just overlooked a very important fact. At this time, she was just a 4-year-old princess raised in her boudoir, while the other party was a young man in his prime. The other party was clearly taken aback, and a hint of surprise flashed through their previously awkward black pupils. After a moment of shock, his handsome face softened and he smiled up, ha ha ha. Princess, you're so funny. Crown Prince Zhao also raised his eyebrows and looked at her, pursing his thin lips meaningfully. Little sister, Moore, but he is the young genius of our Zhao country, and he just saved you. Help me. Can't we just say it? And Mingjie stuck out her tongue and stared at the talented, majestic, and outstanding-looking young man in front of her. Moore. Can't he be the most famous young general of Zhao State and the 4 famous generals of the Warring States period? With this in mind, and Mingjie's small face suddenly changed a few times, and finally calmed down. She smiled sweetly at Crown Prince Zhao across from her and said, "Brother Crown Prince, am I joking with you?" "Oh, it's just a joke," said Crown Prince Zhao, looking at her strangely. "But how could you say such things at such a young age? You're amazing." "Is it impressive? I don't think so." And Mingjie's small teeth lightly bit her rosy cheeks. Unexpectedly, when she told the truth, it aroused suspicion. Did the Crown Prince see something? Puff. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh and touched An Mingjie's head with his hand. "You little girl, you're really a talented person." "You are talented, is your whole family talented?" And Mingjie angrily thought to herself, "As a young and beautiful girl, I have been insulted like this by you. Princess. Princess." At this moment, a few maids rushed over not far away. "Hurry up, did your mother find you?" said the Crown Prince. "Looking for me." And Mingjie was delighted in her heart. She looked up and saw the leader in front of her. "That's great, there's no need to look at them like this anymore. Little princess, where did you go just now? Why can't we find you in the blink of an eye?" The leader quickly approached and pulled An Mingjie, symbolically bowing to Crown Prince Zhao. "I've seen the Crown Prince before." So, An Mingjie was afraid that she would see the dirt on her body, so she quickly threw herself into Mo's arms, rubbed and rubbed, wiping off the dust on her body before speaking. Others didn't know, thinking that the little princess was focused on throwing coquettishness at the leader. "Princess," the leader affectionately touched her head, "be good, the Empress is all anxious. Let's go back quickly." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Empress and Like a Person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Empress and Like a Person. Okay, let's go back, and Mingjie rubbed a few more times and followed her towards Qingxin Garden. In 258 BC, King Zhao bribed Fan Sui and caused a rift with the Prime Minister of Qin, which made King Qin suspicious. In 257 AD, the Prime Minister of Qin hanged himself, and all the people in the Qin mansion died tragically. During his march, King Zhao met a beautiful woman. In the same year, King Zhao led a large army to fight against the state of Qin and achieved a great victory. King Zhao was overjoyed and appointed a beautiful woman as Empress, bestowing upon the daughter of her elder brother the title of princess. When Consortin arrived at the palace of Zhao, she had been living in the side hall without going out for anything. Her greatest wish was to take care of Mingjie, the celebration of Zhao, and the interaction between the concubines. However, early this morning, the king sent someone to bring 2 sets of clothes, saying that the Empress Dowager wanted to see them. Anning did not expect that one day the Empress Dowager would summon them. After living in the mansion for several years, she did not encounter such a situation. With the help of the maid, she changed into clothes and also put on a new outfit for Mingjie. The green gold embroidered robe, paired with a white embroidered pleated skirt, looks extremely fresh and elegant when worn. The headdress is also very beautiful, adorned with green sparkling soft jade. The maid coiled her peaceful long hair into a beautiful bun and pinned it on the hairpin. Anning finished putting on her clothes, carrying Mingjie, and followed the maid out of the side hall. The sunlight cast a faint halo over her slender figure, and her clothes fluttered in the air. She was like a rose waiting to bloom in the morning light, with a gentle and beautiful demeanor that made her different from the mortal world. Consortin followed her maid to the Empress Dowager's Sinaying Palace, where it was bustling with activity. From afar, Beautiful women dressed in various costumes and attendants were like walking flowers, with embroidered skirts, various colors, and embroidery patterns, like a newly unfolded painting, exuding a fresh and fragrant atmosphere, soaring to the sky and earth, magnificent, like the brilliant summer evening glow. Anning, accompanied by the maid, quickly sat down in her seat. In no time, King Zhao accompanied the Empress Dowager over, followed by a group of eunuchs and palace maids. Anning looked up at the Empress Dowager of the state of Zhao. Her features were upright, her appearance was beautiful, and she should have been a stunning beauty when she was young. However, time does not spare anyone. As time goes by, some fine lines have also appeared on her eyebrows and corners of her eyes. By her side, she stood still as the king of Zhao. He sat down with the Empress Dowager, lazily leaning on a chair, draped in a broad robe made of chu shui brocade, with dark and deep eyes. With a gentle sweep of his phoenix eyes and starry eyes, he exuded a majestic aura that shook the world. "You are Empress An." In the room, the Empress Dowager sitting on the central noble concubine's chair was dressed in an orange silk long gown with the pattern of 5 blessings holding longevity. She wore a full set of matching colored accessories on her forehead, and inserted an amethyst phoenix hairpin behind her. Her well-maintained skin was coated with a faint layer of rouge. Farewell to the Empress Dowager. Anning quickly took Enmengjie down from her seat and bowed with satisfaction on the cushion placed in the center. At this moment, a beautiful woman wearing a lotus-colored round-necked silk dress with a golden hairpin on her hair smiled and took the initiative to mix Anning and Enmengjie together. She looked up and down at her and said with a smile, "Empress Dowager, you see, this girl looks really good." After saying this, she glanced at Enmengjie standing beside her and said, "I really want to congratulate the Empress Dowager. I have added a beautiful princess." The Empress Dowager smiled slightly on her face, but there was no smile in her eyes. She slowly looked at Enmengjie and said, "This is the little princess mentioned by your majesty. She is indeed quite good looking. Come over quickly and let the AI family take a closer look." Anning's eyes twitched, but a submissive smile appeared on her face. She gently hugged Enmengjie and walked past Aunt Luo who had just helped her. With a dignified demeanor, she walked up to the Empress Dowager and said, "Empress Dowager." The Empress Dowager extended a well-maintained white and tender hand and touched Enmengjie's small face, saying, "The little one is quite lucky, no wonder your majesty likes it." Anning's face blushed slightly, and her hand holding Enmengjie trembled slightly. The Empress Dowager glanced at her and frowned, saying, "You child, why are you dressed so thin? You're so cold." She waved and said, "Bring over the crane cloak from the AI family." Anning declined as she was about to refuse. The Empress Dowager glanced at the maid behind her and said coldly, "These 2 little girls around me really don't know how to take care of people. Xian, from now on, you should follow Consort An and take good care of her." A graceful girl with willow leaf eyebrows and phoenix eyes stepped out and respectfully bowed to Consort An. "Your Majesty, you see that Consort An has a gentle personality and there are no capable people around her. Now let's make up for one first, and then let Aunt Luo deliver it when there is something good in the future." The Empress Dowager said so, looking like a loving mother. In front of everyone, she personally put on a crane cloak for peace. The crane cloak is light and warm, with a peony pattern embroidered with gold thread on the bright red silk face, and cloud patterns outlined with gold thread on the edges. The inside of the silver mouse is all made of mink fur, which looks very warm. Anning's face slightly swelled and she said, "Thank you very much, Empress Dowager." Enmengjie knew that not only the Empress Dowager was watching at this moment, but also the concubines, maids, and others on the side were watching as the vegetables and butterflies came down. Moreover, the palace has always been a place of conflict, and it is inevitable for them to engage in open and secret struggles. For the peace of newcomers, standing firm is the most important thing. Sporadic laughter came from the place where the women were sitting. King Zhao glanced at Anning with a hint of pity and said, "Don't worship, such a young child doesn't know much etiquette. Learn the rules in the palace. The Empress Dowager's face turned cold beside her. Sister LV. A person next to her tried to make a scene and couldn't help but smile as she looked at Ning Ning's appearance. She turned her face and said to the Empress Dowager, "Look, doesn't consort and look like a person?" I still remember Yunair's eyes were also like this. The person was dressed in a large peony, emerald green smoke gauze, and an emerald cloud, with slanted inlaid pearls and jade steps swaying. This kind of attire is also unique in this room, and her noble status is self-evident. Sure enough, the people around the Empress Dowager also followed suit and advised, "What Empress Yao said is extremely accurate, it's really a bit similar." The Empress Dowager's eyes turned red and she said, "Sister Yao, I think of that girl named Yunar. She's just a young girl with a thin life. Now that she's letting go, she's even more. Leaving the crown prince." King Zhao's face darkened and he sat there silently for a moment. Someone next to him advised, "Isn't the crown prince being guarded by His Majesty's Empress Dowager?" The Empress Dowager, "Please don't be sad, not to mention the person in front of you, even your Majesty will feel uneasy." "It's not." The Empress Dowager coughed lightly and smiled. "I think this child looks very charming. Taking advantage of the good weather today, the AI family is happy in their hearts. Can we give him something?" The Empress Dowager waved to her and said, "Come here." Anning walked over and the Empress Dowager smiled at Her Majesty. "She has been here for several years and has suffered a lot of injustice. Shall I give this to her? Do you understand me?" Soon, I held out a valuable carved box and opened it to see many precious jewelry inside. Anning was very surprised. She didn't expect that the Empress Dowager clearly didn't like her and would send so many things. A feeling of walking on thin ice surged in her heart. In Mingjia's heart, she was full of gratitude to the Empress Dowager at this moment. She had caused Anning to disappoint her good years and wasted her youth. Now that the Empress Dowager is doing this, it is obvious that she is telling everyone and acknowledging Anning's position. Yao Guifei asked Emo to hold Mingjie over and said, "Let me see this child. I've only seen him for the first time since he's grown so big." She then took off a bracelet from her wrist and said, "Although the bracelet is small, it's valuable. It was a reward from the late emperor." And Mingjie looked at the sheepskin white bracelet gifted by the late emperor, which was quite valuable. Why do these people always like to give away jewelry? Can you pass me something else? After running around outside, she was almost vomited by the fragrance of the whole house. Someone behind suddenly said, "Is this Princess Xiaomenger?" And Mingjie turned her head and saw a little girl smiling at her. She was born very delicate, at the age of 8 or 9, with twin daughters and pink clothes. Someone nearby told Anning, "This is the grid of Prince Zhao's house." Gugu held Mingjie's hand and said, "So cute, call me sister." The Empress Dowager smiled and waved her over, saying, "Lear, why did you come? Where is your father?" End of this chapter. Chapter 10. A Descending Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. A Descending Power. Father is busy all day, and I don't know where I am. I just heard that a younger sister has been added to the palace. Come and take a look quickly. Next to her, Lady Yao smiled and said, "Your Majesty, Gugu is referring to you. You have assigned too much work to Prince Zhao." Haha. It seems that I can't be idle either. Otherwise, Xiaoli will blame me again. Mother, Empress Dowager, I have to take a step first. Zhao Wang smiled helplessly and quickly left this place of trouble. Zhao Li curled her lips and shook the Empress Dowager's hand to act coquettishly. "Empress Dowager, let this little sister play with me for a while." The Empress Dowager smiled and said, "That's not possible. The princess is too young and not a toy, and Empress and can't bear to part with her. Besides, when will there be fewer people around you to play with? Last time, I wanted to play with a burning maid in the palace and a cat feeder in Yao Guifei's yard. Mom Luo chuckled and said, no, Empress Dowager, there are quite a few strange things. I heard that the fire-burning girl and the cat-feeding maid didn't stay there long before they were kicked back. Yes, I remember. That fire girl wasn't quite a character, she should be able to play with Lear. Why was she kicked back? Said the Empress Dowager. Yao Taifei smiled and said, the fire girl has a personality, but I heard that Gugu has a better personality. He asked her to use a wooden stick to learn how to draw. She couldn't draw like a fire girl, so Gugu drove her back. Guji's eyes were red, as if he had been wronged. That fire girl smeared all my things dirty, and that cat owner was even more outrageous. He didn't even allow the cat to be fed too much, said he had stretched it to death, and didn't let me play with the cat. He said he would grab me. This is not allowed, that is not allowed, so he drove them all away. The Empress Dowager smiled and pointed at her, you little girl, they are doing it for your own good. What if they really scratch and bite you? Besides, when they feed you, you have to follow the time. If you feed them randomly, the cat won't be able to grow well. Just talk about yourself. If you eat snacks every day, will you still eat well? One is cooking, the other is feeding cats. If you let them do other things, they won't be able to showcase their strengths. Of course, they have to leave. You just want someone to accompany you crazy. Gugu was unhappy and said, I am alone in the royal mansion. My mother left early, and my father is busy with official affairs every day. Usually, only the second and third princesses study together, and there is no one else to accompany me. The Empress Dowager let out a sigh and affectionately touched her head. AI family knows that little Ollie doesn't have anyone to play with, right? She looked at Concubine and said, in the future, let Ollie go to your Qingxin garden and play with Menjur. Yes, Empress Dowager, and Ning responded and looked at Zhao Li with a smile on his face, a mischievous elf-like expression, feeling a little worried for a moment. Thank you, Empress Dowager. Sister Menjur looks very happy. Do you see that she has been looking at me? Zhao Li said happily. Child, who doesn't do this? The Empress Dowager poked her forehead with a finger and said, play with your sister and be obedient in the future. Lear knows, Zhao Li pretended to be an adult and bowed. Alright, Empress Dowager, do you think Gugu looks like a sister? Yao Taifei smiled and said. Of course Lear looks like a sister, right, Menger? Gugu proudly lifted his chin, thinking about his little feet, and poked Anmengjia's small face with his fingers. Anmengjia looked at her dejectedly, unable to say what she wanted to say. I have seen Empress Dowager, and Empress, and the Crown Prince walked over and said, Lear, what are you doing again? Look, you're almost making your little sister cry. Brother Crown Prince, how do you think it was me crying? It's not because she looked at me and cried excitedly. Zhao Li pouted and suddenly remembered something. He patted his hand and said, Brother Crown Prince, you're here. Where's your little servant Li Mu? The Empress Dowager said, what kind of servant Li Mu, you girls' family? What are you asking the Crown Prince about these things? You don't know how famous Li Mu is. Before the year he tied his hair, his reputation had spread throughout the north and south of the river. Some say he descended from the Wenxiu star, while others say he was from the Wuxiu star. Gugu said proudly, some say he is even more handsome than Panin. Puff, the Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh. Grandmother, Empress Dowager, I need to hurry up. Oh, I'll leave first. Looking at his gaze, it seemed like Zhao Li was a monster. Run as soon as you see me. Zhao Li was about to speak when she saw the Empress Dowager frowning and her face turning cold. You child, Gugu from the magnificent Zhao Wang mansion, how could you speak like this? Later, Luo's mother informed Zhao Wang to discipline her well. When will she learn to follow the three virtues, play the piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, perform needlework, and learn the 4 books and 5 classics before she can come out to play? Zhao Li didn't expect to cause trouble for himself with just a few words. He quickly lowered his head and said, Empress Dowager. I heard what third sister said. When we were studying, we had a good time hearing Master say something about resisting the Xiongnu. Third sister said there was a Li Mu who was both intelligent and brave, which aroused my curiosity. Empress Dowager, at most, I won't say that again next time. Can you spare me? Next time, you have another time. The Empress Dowager's beautiful eyes sank. As soon as he said this, he heard the palace maid outside shout out, the second and third princesses are here. Just in time, the Empress Dowager snorted. The door curtain lifted and two young girls walked in. I've seen the Empress Dowager, Empress Dowager. This is. They looked curiously at Anning and Mengjie, then showed a shallow smile at Zhao Li. Zhao Li, whose face had turned pale with fear, immediately felt relieved when he saw the two princesses coming. It seemed that the Empress Dowager would not come towards her alone. Sister Li, have you also come? Said the girl in emerald green clothes. Did you learn the book you were supposed to carry last time? Zhao Li looked at her, closed his mouth, ready to remain silent. That's Empress, and why don't you come forward to pay respects? The Empress Dowager's voice was as cold as her eyes. And Fei. As soon as the third princess entered the door, she was despised by the imperial grandmother and felt a bit unhappy. The second princess quickly stepped forward to pay her respects. The second princess appeared to be 12 or 13 years old, with an oval face and willow eyebrows, gentle and charming. The third princess was just talking, shorter in stature, with beautiful eyes and smiling peach cheeks. Mengjie looked at her and saw Zhao Li with two shallow pear swirls on her lips. The Empress Dowager's face was displeased and she said, Roer, Nier, where did you go just now? Why did you only come now? Just finished class and went to play in the garden for a while. The second princess smiled and bowed her head with a generous gesture of blessings. Roer, it's already the year of the golden hairpin, and we need to learn more about qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. The Empress Dowager looked at her concern and turned to Princess San. Ani, you are a girl. As long as you learn qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting well, how can you be as mischievous as a boy? The third princess was originally listening with a smile, but at this moment, she blushed and defended herself by saying, I didn't. After listening to the Empress Dowager's words, your auntie doesn't care about you either, said the Empress Dowager with a hint of resentment towards her iron-like demeanor. Looking at the Empress Dowager's noticeably different attitude, Mengjie still had a blank and confused expression on her face, but she had a new understanding of the complexity of personnel in the palace in her heart. As princesses, it seems that their status is significantly different. The unruly girl, as expected, the more she heard the Empress Dowager say, the angrier she became. Look at what you're like now, talking about national affairs for 5 days. No, you've been locked up for half a month, copied the women's ring 100 times before coming out. Grandmother, the second princess beside her couldn't bear to watch any more and quickly said, it's Roer's, isn't it? Please spare an ire from grandmother. You don't know that the prince always comes to add daughters and leads Ali crazy everywhere. As a sister, you have done something wrong. Without constant discipline and guidance, from today on, you will kneel in the temple for 3 days and not come out without my orders. Yes. The second princess solemnly listened and then took Xiaoni's hand. Yes, Roer, Nier did something wrong. I will obey the orders of the imperial grandmother. End of this chapter.